Hey guys, this is Echo Soundworks with ADSR, and you are checking out a first look video. In this video, we're going to be checking out Tone2, the new synth that they just released. It's called Tone2 Icarus. It is a wavetable synthesizer. I know what you're thinking, do we really need another wavetable synth? But we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't want to get too review-oriented with this video, but we will check out some of the features, and I'll talk about some of the interesting things that I have been messing around with. So, if you guys don't know about Tone2, I'm going to spend a couple minutes just talking about Tone2 because it's going to help this video. If you want to skip ahead to the actual look at Icarus, probably skip ahead about a minute or two. But Tone2 has been around for a long time. They're not one of the more kind of like well talked about or well publicized synth developer. It's none of their synths have ever been as popular as say like Silent or Massive or even Serum or even Yuhi Diva and Yuhi Zebra and that sort of stuff, or any of the Native Instruments synths. But they do make cool sounding synths. The main knock on a Tone2 synth has always been there's usually about two if you read any like KVR forums or anything like that. It's usually the interface is a little bit clunky, or it just has this like Tone2 sound. It's very glassy, very shiny. And the Tone2 synths are usually incredibly powerful synthesizer. I've been a user of Gladiator and Electra for a while, and even Saurus sometimes. It's like Saurus is their analog style synth, but Icarus is a wavetable synth, so it's entering a very crowded market. We have the kind of probably undisputed long-running champion in Massive that's now being challenged by Serum. There's a bunch of other wavetable synths though. We have Codex by Waves, which is a proper wavetable synth. There's Largo. There is some wave scanning synths or synths that can do some form of wavetable synthesis like Dune 2. Even Synthmaster can interpolate between different, I think it's only up to 16 different cycles or frames, but it's entering a very crowded market is my point. But Icarus is entering it's definitely being marketed as a wavetable synth. It's not like a synth like Dune 2 or it's kind of like even like a Largo synth or Synthmaster, where it's like it's this type of synth, but it can also do some wavetable synthesis. This is rooted heavily in wavetable synthesis, much like Massive, Serum, and Codex. So I guess that would be its main, if you're trying to find a good point of reference. I would say if you have Massive, if you have Serum, you're going to want to heavily consider whether this synth is right for you and if you want another wavetable synth. But we can definitely find some good value in this synth, and we're going to check that out. So I think it retails for $199, so Serum's $189. So for me right off the bat, it's a little bit of a tough sell at first because Serum is such a damn good synth. It's $10 more expensive, so better be in that ballpark. Now, the overall sound of Tone2 Icarus is quite nice. You get a lot of different sounds. It has some features that Serum doesn't have, and that Massive doesn't have as well. So we're going to talk about that because I want to do a little bit of a comparison, because I don't want to just be like, this synth does this. I want it to be more informative for the guys out there wondering if they should buy it. So first things first, things that Icarus has that Massive and Serum do not, because I feel like those are the two most widely used, most popular wavetable synths. And and Zeta by Cakewalk. I'll get that in there. That's a great wavetable wave scanning synth. But anyway, this has a proper arpeggiator. Massive and both Massive and Serum do not. So if you're into wanting to use like an ARP, create arpeggiated patterns in a synth, that's an attractive option for you there. There are a bunch of different presets. So speaking of presets, Icarus comes with around 1,000 patches. You can navigate by clicking the ARP, and this will be giving you different categories like bass, atmosphere, brass, all that sort of stuff, leads. Or you can hit browser and browse from this section as well, and you can star things, and it's kind of cool. You can kind of create and do searches by how you have them starred, or find patches by I really like that one. So we have over here, the left is kind of where you're going to load up a sound. And they do this on a lot of their synths. They do this on Saurus, and it kind of bugs me because I always accidentally click the top or click through the top or the bottom, and I'm trying to change one or the other, and I always screw it up. But that's probably just me being dumb. Anyway, down here you have your envelope section, and you have a filter envelope, which is kind of nice. So it's not as flexible as say like the 4 envelopes that you get with Massive, for instance, or with Serum, where you have all these different envelopes. For instance, if I change the envelope right here and I go to a different oscillator, it's the same envelope. So you don't have a bunch of, then you have an aux envelope as well, so in a filter envelope. But it's not as flexible, in my opinion, as the envelopes in Serum. And it's kind of on par with the envelopes in Massive, but you don't have the loop points and some things like that. So the envelopes are more basic. So far, if we're keeping score, it has the ARP over the other features of the between Serum and Massive. Now, next we have if we kind of talk about just the kind of cool features here, is you have 3 oscillators. So for me personally, this is pretty cool because Serum has 2 oscillators, but it also has a dedicated sub and a noise. And the noise, you can add your own. You can add your own kind of custom noise samples and actually use like normal noises like white noise or drum sounds or Foley, or you can load in instruments. But the oscillator section in Icarus gives you 3 oscillators. 1 is always on by default. You have to turn on 1 and 3 to get it to work. But so if you're looking for just general, blending between oscillators, having 3 puts it more on par with Massive. But I have only a couple times in Serum have I been like, I really wish there was 3. And for ambient type sounds, I really wish there were 3 because it's nice to get that blend. But that's kind of cool that there are the 3 oscillators and they're entirely customizable, which is nice. Now the next interesting thing about Icarus is that it has an LFO that's automatically assigned to your oscillators, which is kind of cool. So if you go to oscillator 1, 2, or 3, there's an LFO just automatically assigned. It's number 1, and you can see that there's that little arrow there indicating. And I like the color coding. Color coding's nice. You can actually choose down here. Speaking of color coding, you can select the skin color, which is pretty cool. So I think that's really, really interesting. Now that I'm down in this section of the synth, we're going to talk about the mod matrix. In my opinion, I don't know why synth makers don't do this, because 2 of the most popular synths of all time now, people can probably say Massive is one of the most widely used software synthesizers of all time. It's probably in that same echelon as like Silent. And what we have with Icarus is we have a mod matrix, and I think Serum nailed it, giving users both the option of the mod matrix and the drag and drop modulation. So I personally like drag and drop mod matrices because it's just so much easier to be like, oh, I want to modulate this knob into this section of the synth. And you have a mod matrix here. So if you're into the whole matrix, if you come from Silent, for instance, you're going to feel right at home setting up your modulation. So there's 3 different slots, and with each slot there appears to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 18 different modulation destinations, which isn't a bunch. Let me see if I turn this on, if we get another one. No, we don't. So it's not a bunch, not as many as you can do in Massive or Serum, so it's kind of a knock against Icarus. Then we have, let's go over to the filter section here. You have 2 filters, which is nice. And the filters, there's some really interesting filter types. You have literally tons of filters. You have your typical ones like low pass, 303 low pass, high pass, band pass, EQs, a bunch of vocal sounds, phaser, combs, fractal, ring mod, these physical guitars, physical flute. Those are really, really cool, and I really like those. I don't know what BP boobs is, but I'm going to definitely check that out in this video. So the filters, I think, in Icarus are really cool. Icarus gives you a lot of, because it kind of took some heavy influence from Serum. You can see a lot of the information here in, like, you can actually see the waveforms. There's a lot of visual representation here, which is really nice. So it's pretty cool. You can click through on the actual sections of the synth, like the filter, to change it, or you can use the knobs down here to do that. It's whatever you kind of like to do. Now you notice that when I click on some of these windows here, there will be, like if I click on the LFO or the envelope, there's these little menus. That's something that Tone2 does. They'll do, like, let's say you want to do like a ramp down 125 seconds or 125 milliseconds. You can do that here with that instead of changing the shape control. So for people who are more list oriented, there is that option. Now moving down here, we have the FX section, and there are 3 different slots, and you can choose. So basically, you get 3 different types of effects. And if we reset the effects here, let's say in slot 1, we want a tremolo. In slot 2, we want let's do like a EQ parametric. Slot 3, let's say we want to do So we got here. So there are a lot of effects, which is cool. So we want to do like a distortion, but it kind of sucks that I only have 3 slots for it, and that's not dependent on oscillator. That's kind of like a global thing. So I don't like that. I think that's limiting, because if you're going to give me, I forget how many effects are in here. It looks like it's at least 30. It could be a little bit more. Don't remember the exact number. Why are you only allowing me to use 3? It's kind of what Massive did, where it only allows you to use those 2 effect slots. And that's what Serum got right, is Serum was like, well, here's a whole effects rack. So it'd be really cool if I could use like a chorus, a vibrato, a few different distortion modes. So maybe in an update they'll do that. I don't know why they did. Maybe it was to help CPU. Speaking of CPU, it appears to be lighter on my CPU than Serum. It's probably more closely related to Massive, I think, in my personal experience with the CPU hit, but it depends how hard you push the voices. Then you have your EQ down here, and you have your limiter. So don't know why you'd use the EQ and the FX slot, but they gave that for you regardless. So that's kind of the lay of the land with the synth. Now, if you're kind of keeping score here, certain things I think Serum has going for this over it is obviously the flexibility of the LFOs. You have 8 LFOs in Serum, and they're very flexible. You have more envelopes. You have more effects, but at the same time, that can all be kind of limiting to your workflow and kind of feel overwhelming and make you feel like, oh crap, am I doing this right? So this is a little bit more simple, I think, which is kind of cool. Then you have a step LFO as well. I forgot to talk about that. You do have one step-oriented LFO to do more interesting types of sounds. All the LFOs can obviously be BPM and that sort of stuff, and you can shape it and you can create different waveforms. But you can't like just draw in like you can in Serum. So it is a little bit like Massive in that regard, where you have these different shapes that you can choose from, a bunch of different shapes, and then you can kind of use the shape knob to curve it. So in my opinion, it's more in line with Massive. It's kind of, the LFOs are a little bit better in, I would say, with flexibility in Icarus over Massive, but not there in terms of what we have with Serum. Now the oscillators, which obviously can be the most important part of a synth that is a wavetable synth. The oscillators are really cool in this synth, and the filters are really cool. So love, love, love how the oscillators react inside of Icarus. Now, you have this kind of like the marketing with Tone2 synths always really over the top. And right when I read the email and this came out, I was kind of like, oh God, it's really like, this is the best synth ever. And I hate when synth companies do that, because like that's completely subjective. It'd be like if I came out with a sound set being like, this is the best sound set for this genre. It's like, no, it's not. There's other good sound sets out there. I can say it's one of the best. It's one of the, but saying it is the best is a little bit weird. But anyway, what they say is they add this like 3-dimensional morph blend into the wavetables, so it's not just scanning through time. It's adding this new layer of depth, and I there's no way to really test that yet. I haven't really ran it into a spectral analyzer, which I could, and I want to do at some point. But to me, it seems like it has some interesting, unique characteristic to its sound, but it's not, it's not like earth-shaking. But the thing that is earth-shaking is how customizable these wavetables are. So you can change the view just like you can in Serum. Single click will get you just the wave cycle or the waveform that you're on, and you can scan through that here and just see that one, right? Double click will see the one kind of coming at you, kind of like scrolling towards you, or away from you. And then the third view will kind of show you everything with the whole kind of kit and caboodle. So you also have this, let's do mono, and we'll just do additive saw for this, and we'll do none for that. So now if we click this here, you can see that the waveform kind of fills out, right? And it's because we have no part. These 3 little tabs here are actually really interesting. You have different voicing modes here, basically. You have like hyper saw, like it's a true stereo oscillator, which is interesting. So in mono, let's go to File. We'll go to Initialized Patch. So we have a saw square sine. Right? Now, mono, it's obviously going to be in mono. Mono times 9. Then we have a hyper saw. With 7 voices. It goes all the way up to 10. So here's my CPU up here. I'm going to play a stacked chord. So that's 10 voices. Let's turn that on for, we'll go to Tool, and we'll go Copy Current Oscillator to Oscillator 2, which I think is really cool. And then it turns it on for you, so we can go to Tool, and we can copy Oscillator, go to Oscillator 2, we'll go to Copy Current Oscillator 3. So that's a really cool feature. Definitely nailed that. So here's 3 oscillators with 10 voices each. Let's check this out. So it's not hitting my CPU that hard, which is really nice. I do have my buffer rating incredibly low to do the video, so it's at the absolute lowest it can go. So that's actually pretty impressive considering how many voices that is. So let's go, and we'll go to File, Initialize the patch one more time. So now we're just back to Oscillator 1. So that's really cool. You have these different modes. You can do stacks. You can do like actual unison. You can do chord stacks, like major chords, minor chords, all that stuff, which is really interesting. Now, here's where you actually choose your wavetable. There actually aren't a lot of wavetables if you think about it, which is, you're gonna, at first glance, you might be like, there is not as many wavetables, but you can import your own wavetables. You can create your own wavetables. So this by no means is the actual end product in terms of the wavetable. So it's kind of cool. Let's change this to Hypersaw or Hypersaw 5. We'll change this to a format square, okay? And what we're going to do now is we're going to go to, these are basically your blend modes, and I believe there are 53 of them. So let's use a stack harmonic one, and we'll morph. So now what you can do is you can go to Tool, and you can apply morph to wavetable. So what that will do, what we just did? We just created this off of the Hypersaw stack mode. We did a format square, and now we're doing with a stack harmonic blend mode, essentially, or morph mode. We can now go to the tool setting here, and we can go apply morph to wavetable. So now we just create a brand new wavetable really easily, right? And so that's a really cool way to create wavetables. You can actually apply morph to wavetable, a morph to current, like the sweep to current waveform. There's a lot you can do to it, which is really interesting, and this would be a whole video on its own, but to me, that's really cool because you don't have to use a wavetable editor. You can just do something real simple to create a new wavetable, because there aren't that many, but that's fine, because you can import your own. Now, speaking of importing your own, you can actually edit it, and this is going to look a lot like Serum, and it is. It's actually laid out quite nicely. You can draw your own wavetables in. It can go up to 256 cycles. You can do spectrum to change your sound. You can mess with the phase. You have all these really cool options, and just hit exit to get out of that. But edit's the way you're going to do that. So that's really interesting to me. You can resynthesize. You have a vocoder. Now those are two things that Serum and Massive both lack. So when this came out, I was kind of like, God damn it. Why can't a synth just get all this right? Like for instance, why can't Icarus have 4 LFOs, 5 LFOs that are completely customizable? Why can't Massive have customizable LFOs, right? Like, it'd be really cool if all 3 of these synths just combined into one synth. Like, I love the FX inside of Serum. I love the flexibility with the envelopes and the LFOs. I think the wavetable editor inside of Icarus far surpasses Serum's, because it's easier to use. You don't have to know what you're doing to create new wavetable shapes, and this editor is really well laid out, I think. So you can draw just like you can with predefined shapes. You can add noise, right? And it's really fun, actually. It's a lot. It's not, sometimes the one in Serum is a little bit finicky. But so yeah, this is a really cool feature. Now, another really cool feature is here's your wavetable position. So if we play this, if we turn this fade down, it's going to give like a hard change and not crossfade in between each of the cycles. With the fade up, it's going to be real smooth. And so even if it's doing all that for you, which is really nice. So in Serum, that was kind of hard. If you try to import your own wavetable, it can be a little bit difficult because you're going to run into, if it's only like 3 or 4 frames, you got to do some like spectral crossfading or morphing to get to work. And Icarus is taking care of that for you, which is really nice. So that's kind of cool. And then you have detune controls, all that stuff. Don't want to get into that. You can assign two LFOs without going into the mod matrix, so it can actually scan through your sound, which is really nice. Now, this is going to get a little bit long, so I want to start to move quickly here. We're going to initialize the patch, and we're going to go to, let's play some of the sounds. The basses didn't really catch my attention. There were some really cool ones. Some of the leads are really nice. Let's play a couple. So some of the leads really caught my attention, but the things that really, really stood out for me when I went through a lot of these sounds were the pads. I absolutely loved a lot of the pads. That one's really cool. Yeah, the pads really caught my eye, and now I don't want to play all those, but the ones that blew me away were the semi-real ones. So let's check this out. Here's a guitar riff. Like what? It's using the ARP, and it has the guitar filter. We talked about this a little bit earlier. If we go to the filter here, we have a high pass in filter 1, then we have the physical guitar model. So that's real interesting to me. We have airy strings, which are quite nice. Be great for tropical house. I mean, there's just a little bit of a strat here. It doesn't sound complete like a real guitar, obviously, but it's interesting. Here's a didgeridoo. For tropical house guys, this would be really cool. Actually be really cool for hip hop too. So yeah, this to me was like the coolest section of the synth. There's trumpets. I can't play all these because it's getting pretty long, but these were really, really cool. I will play the pan flute. So just tons of cool stuff in there. But one last thing I want to touch on real quick is you can actually do resynthesis and you can use a vocoder. I'm going to show you the resynthesis. So we're going to do easy create patch resynthesis, and we are going to pull in a brass sample that I use as a noise sample in a flume pack for Serum. So let's do that real quick. So we're going to hit open, and if it's a long sample, it'll be like, hey, this is longer than the 256 frames. Do you want to condense it? And just say yes. But let's check this out. Okay, let's bring in another one real quick. Let's bring in a Vox. Let's see if I can play this from here. I don't think I can. Maybe I can after it spins for 4 minutes because that's what Macs like to do. Okay, yeah, let's bring that in. So let's check that one in, synthesize vocal sound. See, it's saying we'd like to trim it, and we'll say yes. So now we have this. So we can go to just one wave. We can do one of the cool morphs here. Right, and we just create a cool new sound from an actual resynthesized sample. So that's kind of cool. Serum and Massive both lack that. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me, guys. Let's sum this up because this is getting pretty long. We're at 22 minutes. Like I said, if you have Massive, if you have Serum, there's a little bit of redundancy here, but this Tone2 Icarus can do things that both of those synths cannot. Creating waveforms is easier in Icarus, in my opinion, than in Serum, and I've only been using Icarus for a couple days. I've been using Serum for over a year and a half now. I've been using it since it came out, which could be closer to 2. So that being said, imagine if I'd been using this for 2 years, the things that I would have learned and things I would already know how to do in the oscillators. I can already make really cool sounds in it using the resynthesis mode, the vocoder mode, and the oscillators. Got to get used to, obviously, coming from Massive and Serum, the non-drag and drop modulation, but the arpeggiator is really nice, and the filters are really cool. Some really interesting things. I also, to end this, I did say I was going to check out that boob, BP boobs. Let's see what this is. Yeah, I'm just laughing because that's the shape that comes up on this. So kind of now we know why it's called BP boobs. The resonance splits it down the middle. That is hilarious. That's a good sound though. All right, so I'll leave you with that, guys. BP boobs, Tone2 Icarus, 2016. Yeah, it's a cool synth. If you guys are looking to add to your arsenal of wavetable synths, or you want to get into resynthesis types of situations, vocoder, that type of stuff, it's a very cool synth. I don't think you guys would be upset if you did buy it. But again, if you do have Massive, you do have Serum, there's a little bit of redundancy there. If you guys have any questions or comments, I will try to stay up to date with those as easily as I can, and I'll try to respond as quickly as I can. Post them up below. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I am Echo Soundworks. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.